We live in a global world today, one that is not defined and limited by geographical boundaries. And you're bound to have cultures merging to bring forth great fusion flavors. Take cuisine, fashion, and even motorcycles, for instance. Like today, we got two motorcycles that represent the best of fusion culture. One is a tried, tested, and oh so delicious combination of Austria and India. And the other, this one, is basically a spaghetti Manchurian. Which delicious combination works best for India?
At the top of my game, ain't no stopping my play. And I do this every time, every single month, every single day.
Bajaj and KTM have been working on the 390 Duke recipe for ages. No wonder then that it has that spiciness that you want from an Indian dish. And not to forget the plenty of flavor from its bountiful 373cc mill that spools rapidly all the way to its nearly 10,000 RPM red line. In that regards, the QJMotor SRK400 comes across as a mildly spicy dish. The spiciness levels that you usually associate with the parallel twin mill isn't apparent, as it only comes alive right at the top of its rev range. Kinda like the kick you associate with black pepper at the back of your throat. Nevertheless, it is still a more easily digestible dish, as you don't need to work the gearbox as much while you're in traffic. And even then, the gearbox isn't half as bad as the old Benelli TNT 300i, with which it shares its roots. You will need to downshift to make quick overtakes on the highway though, else plan them well in advance. This lax but tractable nature is evident as the SRK is fairly slower than a Duke in our in-gear roll-on acceleration test. And even in our straight line acceleration tests, it is just marginally quicker. Now we are grateful that Karan Singh from Power Drift lent us his Duke for the shoot. His singledom is apparent as he's removed the pillion grab handles and stuff. However, if he needs to seal the deal with his date, I suggest he takes the SRK400 for it. Firstly, because it's SRK. And more importantly, the buzz from the motor is so obvious and pulsating that, well, you know. Yes, we know the KTMs aren't the best when it comes to refinement, but Karan's done over 8,500 kilometers on his bike, and surprisingly, the tingles aren't quite as apparent. By the way, get ready for our first Shah Rukh Khan reference of the video. This SRK motorcycle is just like SRK in the second half of Devdas, a big-time guzzler. The parallel twin motor is working quite a bit more to keep the bike moving in the city. And even though its highway score is better, we have received better figures from the other KTM 390s that we've tested so far. There's a stark difference on how these two fusions take to the bends. One is sharp, focused, and keeps you engaged thoroughly, while the other asks you, really? You want to go fast? When leaned over? Why? Now sure, SRK might have been awesome in Pathan, but he really earned his reputation by being in romantic movies like Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, K3G, Kal Ho Na Ho, Mohabbatein, and even Devdas. And in a similar vein, this SRK2 likes to keep things chill and take the corners lovingly. Even the way you sit on it brings out the relaxed persona of this sporty naked. It has a fairly low accessible seat height, the bars are slightly narrower, and even the foot pegs are slightly forward set. All of this makes sure that Karan doesn't get tired once he reaches home to his Kiran. Not that the KTM is tiring, it is just a bit extra in every regard. Extra seat height, extra leverage, extra demand from your legs because the pegs are further behind, and extra commitment in bumper-to-bumper traffic. It will take a bit of time for you to get used to this wild child of a machine. But once you get the hang of it, boy, nothing else will matter. Even the riding dynamics on the Duke are more sorted. There is an inherent sense of confidence when you're hustling the bike. Slow down the pace and the suspension allows for adequate bump absorption. It remains taut as ever. In that regard, you find the ride on the SRK400 a bit confusing. At slow speeds, it feels crashy, and as you pick up the pace, the rear starts to get wallowy. So much so that you end up bottoming out the components easily. Now here is where I totally side with the KTM, because slowing down this mental machine requires some seriously good firepower. And Karan is one of those unlucky dudes who got their 390 Dukes with MRF tires during the whole tire import shortage that was there in late 2020. And these MRFs, well, they felt insufficient on the KTM 200s. So that's making us hesitate from riding this bike to its full potential. So Karan beta, please spend some money and get some good rubber from Apollo or TVS tires. Even then, the SRK just doesn't quite stick to the ground. These Maxxis tires aren't as great, and these small twin discs don't quite have the same braking prowess as the KTM's large single. In fact, when you grab a handful of the lever, it sort of gives you this wooden and dead feeling, leaving you with this slight vagueness which isn't entirely fun at 100 kmph or so.
What's up with this lick is finesse worthy?
Thankfully, ABS calibration isn't a big pain point like other bikes we've tested from the Adishwar Auto umbrella. There is no doubt the SRK is a stylish motorcycle. With its sharp Kawasaki Z1000-like face, it isn't surprising that it grabs a lot of eyeballs. We've had people doing a double take more than once, and once you open the taps, the melodious symphony bellowed from the twin pot mill is just on another level. Sadly, the feature set doesn't match its striking looks. LED illumination all around is a boon and works brilliantly. But just a simple negative LCD dash with bare minimum data is not actually what we hope for when you are expected to shell out in excess of 4 lakh rupees. In that regard, the Duke's design is now easily recognizable and yet connects well with the sporty buyer. And even the features list of the KTM is considerably more functional than the SRK's. So what flavor combination works best in India? Obviously, the one that's made in our country. Sure, the Austrians might have put their brains into this, but it's the folks at Chakan who've given birth to this by adding that much needed tadka. And no wonder that most of the boys in the office own one. But is the Italian-Chinese combo bad? Well, not exactly. If both parties were to come together to improve certain areas on the SRK, like the performance, the handling, the refinement, the brakes, the features, it would be a better package. But even if they were to dramatically improve the experience of that bike, there is no way they would be able to manage to offer it at a lower price tag than what these guys have managed. That's like a gourmet pizza, something that looks quite fancy, but isn't quite worth it. So as glorious and exotic as it sounds, ultimately is the desi spicy dish that satiates our palate. Oh, and you know, there's a bigger and meaner version of this coming very soon.
Eyes don't compete, but he choose me. Hang on, they be trying not to lose me. I want your face in my. Make me shoot out like a.